what does Kwan-Tsu actually mean?
I think it means free beer.
For real?
I'm all grown up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is one of the most iconic martial artists and actors of all time. You may have seen him on screen throwing hands with Harrison Ford, The Rock, and LL Cool J, or teaming up with Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's as badass off-screen as he is on, undefeated in 3 Strikeforce Muay Thai matches, and seen training with some of the best in the biz, including Nate Diaz. This guy is the real deal. Give us your best Kwan-Tsu and welcome the Crown Prince of Patusan, Ernie Reyes Jr. Let's go. So what's up, man? How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I just got through training a little while ago with my boy Luciano.
Yeah, that was dope to watch, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. We're doing a thing in here.
Cool. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to hop right into it.
Cool.
When you were little, you had impeccable form already. I've seen videos, and obviously you had the benefit of your dad being an incredible martial artist. But in addition to Taekwondo, you were training in gymnastics and boxing. Did you go to separate places to do those two things, or was that all with your dad? And how did that come about, that interest of expanding your repertoire?
Yeah, my dad was, you know, of course, my original martial arts teacher. And one of the things that he always kind of focused on was just being well-rounded. And so since I was young, I always kind of had an opportunity to work with a lot of great martial artists. Whether it be at events or training or doing seminar tours or whatever it is, I just constantly was around great martial artists of many different styles. So it was really about just like, and it was conditioning. So gymnastics, like pound for pound, is like probably like some of the strongest athletes in the world.
Oh yeah.
And you can see by the girls gymnasts and the men's as well, like pound for pound, like core strength, everything, like gymnastics was it. So, and I enjoyed it. So I was a competitive gymnast up until the point where Hollywood really started like picking up, and there was just no time for me to keep up with that kind of, you know, training schedule on top of my martial arts.
Right.
And do films and television and all of that. So then the gymnastics kind of went away. But yeah, those were all things that were, you know, I trained at Broadway Gymnastics in Santa Monica with Mark Casso, who's an Olympic gymnast.
Wow.
Like all top tier people. Boxing in the early days was, at a separate place. Gus and Walt and people up in the Bay Area, San Jose. And so we always kind of like try to search out the best people in like different things, you know, and so that's what we did.
That's dope, man, and that's pretty incredible that from an early age you were interested in expanding that way.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it was definitely guided by my dad and
Sure.
like his vision for like trying to make me into the best martial artist he could be, you know. And then I also was like all about it because Bruce Lee was my hero, and I was trying to just be the best that I could be. And so it was his kind of vision in the beginning, but then my willingness to actually have to go and do all those things.
Yeah, facts.
And then, you know, at a certain point you kind of create your own vision, and then you just keep the process going.
Yeah. Well, I know that because of all that training and you being on the road competing and all that, you didn't really have a typical childhood. But do you still have a favorite Halloween memory?
Halloween? Yeah, kids, and I mean, like the kids stuff when I was growing up, like I was already almost like, unfortunately or fortunately, past all of that. It was like, Halloween, all these things that kids that are normal kids are doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't really doing any of those things because we were just training, and most likely we were gone on the weekend either competing in a martial arts tournament or doing a martial arts demonstration, or so there wasn't a lot of time for like even social activities of any sort other than hanging out with like the kids that were part of the martial arts, you know, team, or kids that were training at my dad's school, something like that. So I can't even remember Halloween other than my daughter's birthday is Halloween now.
Yo, that's dope.
Yeah, so that's what Halloween means to me now.
At the time, do you remember, did you ever feel like you were missing out, or were you just so invested in it that you were like, this is life, I'm about it?
Yeah, no, there was definitely, there was definitely a lot of times that I can remember of like, damn, I wish I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do this, or I could do that. But also it was just kind of ingrained into me, and I already knew like, hey, we're on a mission. In order for us to go from where we are here in San Jose, like small town, before it became like the computer capital of the world and all of that,
right?
There wasn't anything going on there, so it was like pretty much just a farming community, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, the beginning of, you know, technology with companies like IBM and stuff like that were there, but it was still so early. So for me, it was like, we're on a mission. In order for us to get from where we are to where we're trying to go, like that's just what it is. So I was with it, and I was all about it, and I loved it. And at the same time, I was like, damn, I wish I could like also go do that.
Sure, yeah. No, I feel that. Well, speaking of San Jose, I've heard you mention that your kind of earliest entry into being on screen was 16 millimeter films that you used to do in San Jose with film students. You still got any of that stuff?
I think there's one on YouTube. It's called Fair Play.
Okay. All right. We got to check that out.
Yeah. So that was cool. That was like way before Hollywood, at least a handful of years before Hollywood, like even. But a lot of the, you know, shows that we did when I was a kid, you know, it was entertaining.
Yeah.
And so we did scenes and we did skits and we did like a lot of different things that like made it very natural for us when it came time to like get into films and television. Right. It's not like, well, we'd never done a fight scene. We had already done fight scenes and performed like in front of big crowds and done halftime shows for the Niners and halftime shows for the Warriors, and like especially in the Bay Area, like we had already done a lot of live shows.
Your experience level was probably way ahead of a lot of people in Hollywood already. Yeah,
and honestly, by the time when I was getting into Hollywood in the early 80s or whatever, there wasn't, it was very different than what it is now.
Yeah. I'm about to get into the Hollywood. Before we get there, how old were you when you did the Chuck Norris jeans ad?
Yeah, I was like 8 years old, somewhere around there.
So did that shoot happen in NorCal or in LA?
That actually happened in Oklahoma City, where...
Get out. So how did it come about?
Well, Century Martial Arts is kind of one of the
big brands.
Yeah, largest like martial arts manufacturer and distribution company.
Right.
So they do uniforms and safety equipment and all kinds of stuff. And back then, you know, they were really just a small company starting off like in the founder's garage.
Right.
You know, but they had a martial arts tournament, and they started to sponsor myself and my father's team as we would travel all across the country competing and doing live shows. And so that's how that came about. And Chuck Norris was a big part of Century in the early days. And yeah, Chuck Norris kicking jeans.
Yo, that's a dope ad, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Did you used to rock them for real in real life?
Not really. I was like, give me the 501s.
Facts.
Yeah, I don't know about the little lace-up jeans in the front. I was like, I'm good on those.
Cool for an ad, though.
Yeah.
So you started acting after you got noticed at a tournament. A woman asked your dad if you spoke English because she was very impressed by your abilities. Who was that woman? Was she an agent? Was she a producer? And how did that directly lead to The Last Dragon? Did she get you an audition for that or what?
Yeah, so we were in Vegas and we were doing a martial arts show. It was actually at a kickboxing event. And in between, you know, one of the fights, we came out and performed for the audience. Yeah, the lady came up. Her name was Sally Baker, actually. She was, even at that time, which was like the early 80s, she was like old school Hollywood. She had done stuff for like children's programming. Early on, she did a show called Hobo Kelly that was like really popular in the LA area, way before I got there.
Right.
And she was a huge, you know, advocate for like women in films and things like that. She was like she had done her thing in like old school Hollywood. And so we started talking, and at the time when we did the demonstration, we were like at the peak of like competing, and it was all brand new. We were just competing in tournaments and traveling, doing shows and stuff like that. And at that time, you know, you're always trying to get to, like in Black Belt Magazine or Karate Illustrated, they would have like rankings. So like you go to the tournaments and you're trying to get up there and in the rankings or whatever. So at that time, it was like all about like becoming a champion in like the martial arts scene in America.
Right. Making your bones.
We're like, yeah, we're too busy. Every weekend we've got a tournament, and like there's a schedule for the whole year of, we got to hit all these tournaments. We don't really have time to do that. So like 4 years passed by, we competed, we did everything that we needed to do, and then it was like, okay, we had done that, like what's the next step? And so we called her back up, and
4 years later.
yeah, and she was like, well, has he grown any? And my dad's like, no. And she was like, all right, so we met up again, and so she was the person that brought me, so she became my manager.
Okay.
And then she brought me to a lady named Suzanne DePass, who was like a high-powered executive over at Motown.
Okay.
She was like Berry Gordy's right-hand person.
Wow.
You know, at the height of all Motown's 25th anniversary, and
Yeah.
she worked with Michael Jackson a lot and people like that. So those two ladies, you know, started to really nurture my career in the industry, and that's how I got sent over to New York. They were filming The Last Dragon already, Motown, and they had the climactic fight scene was about to come up, and they were trying to boost the action and that kind of thing. So we went to New York, and we were going to perform for Berry Gordy and see like where it would lead. So we go on to the set of Seventh Heaven, Last Dragon, for all your Last Dragon fans.
Yep.
We go there. It's like late at night. I don't know what time it is. It's late. I'm sleeping behind the stage. Like after we just flew to New York, I'm like, my dad wakes me up. It's like, hey, it's time to perform or whatever. So we get our ghetto blaster. Like we used to always do our stuff choreographed to music.
Yep.
So that was like,
you guys
one
kind
of
of
our
popularized
things.
that.
Yeah, that was like one of our things. Like in the early days, like martial arts demonstrations used to be like real traditional and very quiet and like it's very serious. And then we brought it into music and choreography to music and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we did our thing, and Berry Gordy was like, you know, he's like, listen, I know talent when I see it, and your son has talent. And so they wrote me into the film, and that was that. And that was the beginning of my relationship with Motown.
Wow.
And Suzanne DePass and Berry Gordy.
Yeah.
And so after the film, they were the ones who hooked up with Disney and began to create the TV series.
About how old were you at that point in time?
So like Last Dragon, I think I was in around 12, something
Okay,
like that.
and
I think I looked like I was like 6 years old, but I was like really
Yeah,
about
which was
12.
working in your favor.
Yeah, for sure.
And you moved to LA about that time as well, right?
Yeah, basically like after The Last Dragon, it was pretty much like, hey, if you really want to do this, you have to be in LA. We have meetings, you have auditions, you got to meet people, and it's not like, it's like tomorrow or today at 3 o'clock, go to the Beverly Hills Hotel or something like that.
Right.
It wasn't like now where you like zoom in your audition.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so
Did your whole family move with you?
it was me and my dad primarily in the beginning, and we moved to Santa Monica, and we were staying with a friend for like the first little part of it. So I went to like sixth grade out in Santa Monica, and that was like a whole different world or whatever. Then we were like, okay, we're like starting to get some traction, and like we need to move here like full time. And then we moved to a different neighborhood that was like not Santa Monica, and so on the 10 East towards like Crenshaw, and over there, and that's where we moved. And actually, my dad and I lived in a garage for like 3 years as we were like promoting.
Wow.
So 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, in and around there, we were just trying to like make it, whatever. We did the pilot for Sidekicks, was called The Last Electric Night. That was a Motown Disney production. We were still living over there. It was like Crenshaw and Pico, in and around there. Between Olympic and Pico. Yeah, so then when the series got picked up, we were like, yeah, we're moving on up like the Jeffersons, and we moved to Burbank.
Yes.
Where it was a lot, like we didn't hear the helicopters every night.
Yeah, it's a different scene. It's a different scene.
Richard Ramirez wasn't like running around everyone's backyard or whatever. We're like, all right, this is cool. And we filmed at Disney, so it was like, we were literally
down
2
the
minutes
block.
2 minutes away.
During that whole time when you guys were here, like living in the garage and stuff, was your father teaching out here?
Yeah, like we had some classes going on at the Boys and Girls Club in Culver City.
Okay.
More just like donating time, like pretty much. But like his thing is like, I have to train you anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well be in a group of people.
Yeah.
So for a while we were at the Boys and Girls Club in Culver City.
That's really cool, man. Yeah.
And stuff like that. Those were like some of the best memories, even though you're kind of struggling or whatever, you're still in a new land and you're like chasing your dream.
Yeah, man. Well, it's not the treasure, it's the quest.
Yeah, right.
So. Cool, man. Well, I want to talk about Red Sonja real quick. I've heard you say that, being on there was surreal because at night, you actually had the opportunity to train with Arnold and train with Franco. From that point, you were a little kid, but were there any specific training tips that you learned from him that you still incorporate today?
Not really. I mean, at that point, really, because my dad had me lifting and stuff when I was like 8 years old.
Right.
So I'd already been lifting by the time I was like 12. So Red Sonja happened in between Last Dragon and the TV series.
Yeah.
So it's like, you film the pilot, whatever. It's like, it takes a long time, but by the time they put together the pilot and air it and then get the feedback and like what everyone's response to it to get it's like you're talking a long time. So in between that time is when we did Red Sonja. So I did The Last Dragon and Red Sonja was my next job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the best. That was like for a kid, that was like the best movie making experience. Richard Fleischer, who's like a legendary director.
Yeah.
Soylent Green, 20,000 Leagues. All the amazing, like classic old school Ennio Morricone, like the soundtrack.
Crazy.
And it's like the movie was whatever it was, like, but the experience of making it was amazing. And I was already lifting, so my shtick with Arnold was like I'd pose for him, like whatever, and he would laugh because like I knew his whole posing routine.
Oh, dope!
Whatever.
Yeah. Because you had already seen Pumping Iron and stuff.
Oh yeah, I was like I was watching Pumping Iron when I was like 8 years old, getting hyped up myself. Like
yeah. You knew Arnold, but at that point you didn't know that he was about to be the biggest star on the planet, right? Because Terminator didn't drop yet.
I'd seen the Conan movies, so
right?
I was like, all right, that's tight.
And he gave you a VHS of Terminator before the rest of the public saw it.
Yeah, we were coming home. We finished work one day, and his mom was leaving set. She had been visiting, and so we went to say goodbye to her, or whatever. And he gave us a VHS tape and was like, hey, go check this out. I just filmed it. It's coming out this summer. And my dad and I went back to the hotel, popped it in the VCR, and up came Terminator, and I was like, fuck, I want to make a movie like that so bad.
Yeah.
It was so badass. Like, the first Terminator was just like, and he had to put the poster up in his dressing room.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, so that was a tight little thing. But yeah, it was amazing because I'd seen Arnold like growing up, and a lot of these things like Bruce Lee or even just Arnold wasn't necessarily my hero, but like he definitely was inspiring me to like
for sure
want to train hard or whatever.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, all these things. It's like at a young age I was like seeing like, hey, you can dream about something, and then like not too long later it's happening for real. Like, oh, I want to make movies like Bruce Lee, and you're around 8 years old, and then like 4 years later you're actually
doing the shit,
making movies, and actually Bruce Lee's in the movie that you're
you know what I
mean?
That's
so it was
right.
like crazy mind-blowing stuff. But I saw all of that when I was a kid. I saw the process of life and the process of like setting a goal and then like doing everything you can to like chase after that, and then actually succeeding and accomplishing like what your goal was. So I saw that process early on, which like carried through the rest of my life of like, hey, you can be wherever you're at, like a white belt at something, and through hard work and dedication and some focus and concentration, in however long it takes you, you can get to a point of being a black belt at that thing, whatever it is.
Big facts.
In life. So, that was like a big part of it, is like, damn, I seen Arnold in the magazines, and then I'm watching him like, in this movie, and next thing you know, I'm working with him, and then now I'm like working out and like
showing him his posing routine.
What's up, bro? All your shit. So it was like it was an amazing experience. I really look back on that time period like happy childhood memories.
Yeah, that's what's up. Now we fast forward a little bit after that. Last Electric Night and Sidekicks on Disney. I saw a clip of you promoting that on Mickey Mouse Club in '91. I don't know if you even realize this, but not unlike Bruce Lee, you actually have your own signature sound effect. Are you aware of this?
The aya.
Yeah, okay, but nobody does it like you. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's amazing, bro. And that's when you nailed it on there. I was like, you hear that in Surf Ninjas, you hear that in Ninja Turtles, you hear it all the time. That's what's up.
That's tight.
I don't know why they don't have Sidekicks on Disney Plus. Do you?
I've asked around. It was a Disney Motown co-production.
Okay, so
there's probably a little bit of some like working, but I've had enough people ask me like, why isn't Sidekicks, like all those episodes should be like on Disney Plus? Just they've got a lot of old school shows in their library.
A lot,
as well.
yeah.
And it kind of fits into the type of stuff that they're doing now that's like really successful. So I don't know. I'm sure it will at some point.
Okay.
You know, we've had conversations about talking about the possibility of trying to bring back, you know, The Last Electric Night in current times.
Yeah.
Just 30 years later or whatever it's been. So, you know, there's been some conversations about some things that we'll just have to see, like, kind of where it goes.
Dope, man. So a few years later, Pat Johnson, who you've known since you were a kid because he used to judge you at martial arts tournaments, he asked you if you wanted to be a stuntman on a new Golden Harvest production to replace a Hong Kong stuntman who had gotten hurt. And that movie was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Where you did the stunts for Donatello, which not only did you do the stunts, but you choreographed all the fights.
Well, my fights.
All of your fights. Now, one of the producers, Thomas Gray, at the end of the movie, was so impressed with you that they told you they were going to write you into the sequel. There were obviously 3 other stunt doubles for the other Turtles, including your boy Ken Scott, who's amazing. What do you think made you stand apart from them that Thomas Gray was like, hey, Ernie, I want to write you into the sequel?
Well, first of all, I was the only one that spoke English.
Really?
Because all the Hong Kong guys were from, all the other stunt guys were from Hong Kong.
Right.
So Golden Harvest.
But Ken, American dude, right?
Yeah, but I don't know all the details. Can't really remember all the details, and he knows that story better of how he got and when it happened or whatever. But it's like, I was the Asian kid I was the Asian American kid.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, and Ken doesn't fall into that category.
Sure.
Like, I was the Asian American kid, but I was American.
Yeah.
And when I filmed that movie, I was like in between my junior and senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. So I was just all about it. I was into hip hop. I was just like, you know, I was just in touch with being a teenager in America, basically.
Right.
And so I think that they could see that, you know, and they just, because, you know, and so he asked me at the end of it, he told me that, he says, you know, do you have any like nicknames or anything that you go by? And I was like, well, I go by Keno. On my mom's side of my family, I go by Keno, K-O-N-O.
Very close to Keno.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh, okay, great. And so, yeah, when I finally got their script, it was like, consider the role of Keno. I'm like, damn, they changed one letter and took my name. I guess it's like Shang and Shang from Shang-Chi.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
Just change a syllable,
a little bit,
there, a vowel, and you got a whole new character. I'm like, damn. So, but that was a pretty funny little moment. And I tell that story more recently, more often, about that part of it, because I've got some things that are coming up in the future too, where, you know, it plays on those ideas.
That movie, Ninja Turtles 2, was such an important movie for me, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, but, you know, I just want to let you know, like, I was born in '89, so that was my first exposure to you as an actor, and that was something I used to watch with my father all the time, you know, run that VHS back, and me and him used to play Keno and Raph. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'd be Raph, I'd be Keno, or we'd switch it up, and so it really holds a lot of fond memories for me, you know?
Cool.
That you're a big part of. I've read that before Vanilla Ice was written into that movie, and his whole part, your role was even bigger.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, Vanilla Ice, man.
He stole your thunder a little bit, bro.
Tripping.
Do you happen to know what it was, what your expanded role would have looked like?
I know. I think that there was some sort of romance between him and April, which was like, like, I don't know exactly. That's what the writer told me.
Yeah.
And he was the one who told me that. I'd never met him.
Yeah.
I met him at a convention. I think it was this year, and he told me that. He was like, yeah, but I was like, damn, I wasn't really feeling that part anyways, but all right, whatever, it's too late.
What do you mean by you weren't really feeling it?
Well, no, I was into hip-hop already, deep for real.
Sure.
Like, in LA, anybody that was around during those times, it was like AM radio. Yeah. 1580.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, the old school, like, legends.
Oh,
so like,
you mean
so
you
I
were
was
feeling
like,
Vanilla
Ice Baby and all that. I was like, it was a hit, and he was popular as hell. But I was like, I'm trying to ride for hip hop.
Yeah.
And this ain't really it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And now every time somebody posts it, they always like, use the ice, like the vanilla
Go Ninja,
ice. Yeah,
go Ninja,
I'm like,
go.
yo, I'm not reposting that on my story,
it's
bro.
it's the green machine gonna rock the town. What
nah,
up, bees?
bro, I'm good off that.
Nah, I feel you, man. I mean,
And it's all good. Like, it was the time. I have no, like, whatever. But that was the mindset.
Yeah.
I was, at that point, I was 18 years old, just graduating high school. And hip-hop was a huge part of just my generation. The people that were at that time period,
Yeah.
you're like Tribe Called Quest, like real, like,
Of
hip-hop
course.
music.
No, you
you're
was
like,
riding with the
yo,
real shit.
yeah, this is that.
Yeah.
Which is cool for whatever. I'm not hating on anybody's, like,
Yeah.
whatever they're trying to do, but I wasn't trying to, like, I was like, oh man, it's kind of making it corny a little bit to me.
Believe me, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, but it's all good.
Yeah. Michael J. White is in the junkyard scene in that movie as an extra. At that time, did you know him at all? And did you know what an amazing martial artist he was?
No, I didn't. It was just the one scene that I remember was we were like outside.
Yeah.
It was like New York, and it was like he was there. That was it. But that's the only time that
Do you know him now?
I know him now. Yeah. No, like, we don't spend any time together or
Yeah.
whatever, or train together. But I know him, and he's cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And you choreograph Keno's fights too.
Yeah.
Which I think those fights still stand up today. So I'm curious, were you getting paid separately as an actor and a choreographer, or was it just kind of part of the deal?
No. Yeah, it was more of an honor for anything. Like, is the fact that I got to do it. Because
Sure.
it's like, all right, cool. I've been doing martial arts shows and choreography with my dad since I was a little kid.
Right.
So of course, even with my dad, I would be like, well, I want to do this because it's, this is going to make me feel a certain way or look a certain way or whatever. So I already had a clear idea of what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so, but a lot of times you don't get that opportunity because the choreographer or the stunt coordinator says, do this, do that, and this is not whatever.
It's actually way doper that you're able to make yourself look on screen exactly what you want to do. So.
Yeah, so it was cool, and he was totally supportive of it, and it was just basically we just, create some choreo, show it to Pat, and then he would be like, cool. So yeah, it was good, and it was an honor that you got to do that.
Yeah. More
than like, hey, this is a paying gig or whatever. I don't even know if there was a choreographer. It was just the stunt coordinator.
Right.
That's just another cost for them.
Exactly.
They're like, all right, well, big budget movies, they have a stunt coordinator, a choreographer.
Yeah, a whole second unit.
Yeah.
Why weren't you back for the third one?
I was doing Surf Ninjas.
For real? Okay, hold up. So they did approach you.
I don't know if they approached me or they didn't. It was New Line was the one.
Yeah.
So New Line produced Surf Ninjas.
So they
where
knew that
New
you
Line was distributing Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So then when the Secret of the Ooze came out that Monday, they hit us up and were like, we want to do movies with you.
Yeah.
And so then that whole process started. But that's the reason why I didn't come
That's
back.
crazy. I never realized it was that simple. Okay, so that story might have been a little bit different if the timing was different. Who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into that. New Line called you after Ninja Turtles 2 opened big, and that's when you brought in Dan Gordon, the writer for Sidekicks, and that's obviously why both of those projects feature Patusan as a location. Dan pitched 3 different movies. One was you and Hulk Hogan, one was you and Jackie Chan, and one was Surf Ninjas. Did you just bring in Dan and say, hey, what ideas do you have? Or did you have any input into what those concepts might be?
So the thing is like, Dan didn't pitch the Hulk Hogan. And these were just ideas before Dan even got there.
Okay.
Like, hey, what do we want to do? Like, Hulk Hogan had done like some crazy movie with New Line.
Yeah.
Where he was like in a tutu and like crazy.
I remember the trailer for that. Yeah.
So I was a little bit like, I don't know, like if he's the dude.
Wait, was Rocky out at that point though? Like, had he done Rocky already?
He had done Rocky, but it's like, but your more recent thing was you were in a tutu, and it was like, I was like, nah, I don't know about that. Jackie Chan hadn't done a movie in America yet.
Right.
So I really was like, I don't know, like if that was like gonna be the move either, or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, like my whole thing was like, hey, we can do the martial arts like the best of them.
Yeah.
But we're from California. We're from like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you want to
be you.
Yeah, we want this to be. That's what's gonna make me different. If I just try to be like Jackie Chan or whatever,
Sure,
I'm like, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
You know. And so, no, it wasn't more like that. And then comes back to Sally Baker again. She was still managing me at the time, And then so it was like, all right, let's bring in Dan. He pitched 3 ideas. I can't even remember what the other 2 ones were about. At the time, my thing was like, oh, into skating, into hip hop, so Dan had always, I believe, and I don't know because I haven't had this conversation, but from a lot of the storylines, there's, you're pulling from our real life too.
Yeah.
Right? Because like that's part of what it is, even like whether it be the TV shows, like, oh, this karate champion kid or whatever. It was always like kind of pulling from us. That's what we were into. It was like skating. And that was kind of like my ideas too of like, hey, something where it's like the character skateboards and is into music, has his hat backwards, and some hoop earrings, and like
he's a cool
some
California dude.
California kid who can kick ass. Like that to me is like, if we can create an action star that's that, like this is gonna go up. And I was a producer. At that point I was like, I grown up with heroes like George Lucas and Spielberg, and of course even Coppola and Scorsese and all that, but at that particular time I was like, no, I'm trying to make family action adventure movies like Spielberg type movies, but for kids that I'm starring in, that the characters like cool and hip and relatable to other kids. So that was like my whole vision for everything. And if Surf Ninjas would have taken off, we would have been able to like take it, not just that franchise, but create other ones that were like a vehicle for me to do my thing as an action star. That was really what it came down to.
That was the plan.
And so, Dan ended up coming in there and did a great job, putting together the screenplay. They liked it. And it was all kind of revolving around my family again. My dad and like all that. It was like, okay, we're all going to be in the movie, and I'm going to be a producer on it, and we're going to like do the thing. And it was definitely a struggle all along the way, because like you have a clear vision of what it is, and then you're trying to push it through to a studio. Not everybody sees like the exact vision, and you don't really want to go too far. There's a lot of different things. And we're marketing to kids. Like I feel like they marketed it in the end like they didn't know where the audience lied. And you can see some of the jokes in Surf Ninjas, like, is this for kids? Like some of the comedy is like skews a little bit like swallowing the key every Tuesday. It's like, okay, that's a kid not gonna
Kelly whispering some slick shit to that dude to get him into
whatever the things maybe is like. And so it was, a lot of it was just trying to lock into the tone of like what the movie was gonna be. But I think now in retrospect, that's also like what makes it kind of like this cult classic movies, because it's not like one way or the other. It's just what it is.
And also it's a perfect, it fits into what we had as 90s culture for 90s kids, because what we were watching on TV, Rocko's Modern Life, Ren and Stimpy, those were for kids, but they had all those layers of, the jokes that maybe you got it and maybe it flew over your head and you'll get it a couple of years later, but they're there. Let's get an official call on this right now. What does Kwan-Tsu actually mean?
I think it means free beer.
For real? Okay.
Well, in Taekwondo, Kwan-Tsu is a spear hand.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I don't know. I think that might have been something that my dad came up with, like, what's the word?
Yeah, okay.
Say?
Yeah.
And like whatever. And then everybody else created the meaning behind it.
Yeah. What language is Patusani really based on? Is it?
No, I think that if there was any kind of native language that we ever had to throw out, I think that it was probably going to be like Tagalog or something that we have some familiar.
Sure. Do you speak Tagalog?
I don't. No. Okay. And my dad doesn't really either, but we know enough words to be able to like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
And so that was that. It was no real like language.
There was a Surf Ninjas video game for Game Gear, and it's interesting because the issue of using one's likeness has been coming up more and more with like AI and all that. Did you get paid extra for that video game?
I don't believe so, to tell you the truth.
That's crazy.
But I did have, again, going back to like Spielberg, I was like, all right, well, he's like, the game is about like having ownership in the movies, not just being in them. Like, that's cool, but they're going to pay you a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And then if this thing hits, you're not going to get any of that.
Right.
And they're just going to go, and then they're going to like wave some more money in front of you to go do it. And you're not going to have any ownership of it. So for me, it was all about like, I need to try to crack this level of beyond just like, I'm trying to be an action star. Because there was already independent film and like everything was popping at that time.
Yeah.
Quentin just coming out, Robert Rodriguez is coming out, Man Bites Dog. All this stuff that I was into already was coming out, and the indie scene was like super popping. It was like early days of
Yeah.
the 90s
Yeah.
and independent film. So I was like, no, I need to have some ownership. I need points
Yeah.
on these things.
Yeah.
So that was like my main thing, was like, if everything was making money, then I was going to see some of
You'd
that money.
keep eating, yeah.
From toys, from games, from like whatever.
Yeah.
So you're not really getting paid up front for that. But
Right.
you're like, all right, well, you just have a Sega gang. I mean, if you own 5% of...
So you had a piece of it. Okay.
Yeah, if you own, which is like, at the time, like Spielberg's getting like 10%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm working my way up. I already got 5
Yeah.
points.
Hell yeah.
But didn't really realize and understand the depth of like how back end works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right, back end means that they're gonna throw all kinds of studio costs, and your movie's never gonna make money.
Right.
And it's gonna, even if it's Return of the Jedi.
What's
they're
the
gonna
gross versus the net? Yeah.
Yeah, even Return of the Jedi is gonna lose money. You're like, how's that? That was the biggest box office gross movie. No, we lost money. That means all the points that everybody had on the back end, you're not seeing any of it.
Yeah. Are you still in touch with Kelly, with Rob, Nicholas Cowan?
Yeah, not really like constantly, but there's some run-ins here and there. I just saw Nick the other day. Kelly, Hugh, I've seen here and there.
Yeah.
It's all love all the time. You
Yeah.
know, Rob, I haven't really seen, but we've texted here and there.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, I heard you say that at Pensacon 22 that you had maybe talked to Rob about a Surf Ninja sequel. You know, your daughter Lotus is acting. I think it's perfect for another father-child duo. Who owns the IP for that? And I've heard you also say that your focus now is on making movies. So is this something that you would do?
First of all, it's owned by Warner Brothers because Warner bought New Line.
Okay.
So Warner owns all the catalog for New Line, from my understanding, pretty much. So Warner is the one who owns the rights to Surf Ninjas. And mind you, this is like in the early 90s. Like, you can't just look up like email files or like, where's the contract? Like, you're gonna have to literally go dust
Archives.
something out and open it up. There's a lot more work involved to like even figure out, even sidekicks or that.
Yeah.
It's like you got to go back into actually looking at and having legal review contracts and see what it's like, a whole different thing versus just let me send you this email and
Correct.
take a look. So all that becomes like more of an extensive process than like any IP that would be in the last 20 years even.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as far as being open to it, I wouldn't say that I'm closed off to it. But again, it comes back to, at this point in time, really like a big part of it to me is like ownership.
Yeah.
And great people have talked about this all along the way, whether it be like Prince or whatever. It's like artist owned, creator owned, like whatever. That's like where it's at, you know? Whether it be music, films, whatever. And the landscape of like entertainment and distribution and all of that has completely changed.
Yeah.
So to go back to something that you're not going to have any ownership of, to me is like, yeah, that sounds like fun and maybe that'd be great for the fans, but why if you can create your own movies?
Your own new thing.
And that's kind of like where my real headspace is at now, is like, hey, you know what? The way that, and I've been dreaming of this since the early days of independent film. Like, hey, I want to do what they're doing. I like what they're doing, and like I like the style of movies. I like the budget of the movies. I like everything about being indie. Even people like George Lucas, who are still like maintained, like I'm still like independent. Even if it goes off and it becomes whatever it is, it's like the mindset is still like independent. I'm not trying to go with what these people are telling me is the right thing to do.
Have you ever attempted to reach out and just put a feeler out like, yo, what would you guys let these rights go for?
No. I have thought about it. Just like, it's like just even being able to look at the accounting of like, hey, well, how much is where it's like.
Because let's be real, right? They ain't gonna do shit with it. They just,
well, and even like streaming. So things like streaming now, it's like, well, they can't put it on streaming until they have to like.
Yes.
So somebody like me who owns 5% of like the back end, you're gonna have to like, if you do a streaming deal,
you gotta count it properly.
You gotta count me in on that. You know what I'm saying? Because people are like, well, where's Surf Ninja? I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody has points on it though, which is, and it's probably none of the other cast.
Right.
I don't think anybody else has points except me. So it's just gonna be New Line and me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know if that's like a holdup or not, but there's a reason in it. And the good thing is over time, people are like, hey, we're like, it should be at least on streaming.
Facts.
You should just be like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So hopefully, you know, with enough pressure over time, they can like put it out, and like I think that there will be a nice reception for that kind of movie.
Absolutely, man.
And then hopefully introduce a whole younger generation, because I go to some, you know, I have meet and greets and stuff like sometimes all over the country, and you know, it's the parents showing their kids the movies that they grew up on.
Yeah, man. For some reason that I still don't understand, Surf Ninjas did not do well at the box office, right?
Yeah.
And you being the star, it affected your acting career, and you didn't really get a meaty role until The Rundown came up.
Yeah.
But you were on Rush Hour 2 as Zing. Was there ever any talk at all about a fight with Jackie Chan? Because it just seems like a big missed opportunity that you were on screen with him, but there was no action.
Yeah, there was. That was the initial phone call, like, hey, you know, Brett wants you in his movie, and you're gonna get to do a fight scene with Jackie Chan. I'm like, bet, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah. This
and
is
I'm
the
like
one.
in full training mode. This is before The Rundown. It's like between Surf Ninjas and The Rundown, just nonstop training.
Yeah.
And that's like 15 years, like, and never giving up on the dream,
Right.
And knowing like I'm training for when the time when comes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be like, hey, well, can I get in shape and give me 10 weeks?
You
and
were
I'll
ready.
Transform, like walking around like this, ready to go.
Yeah.
And piss the fuck off. No, I'm just kidding. But
Well, I mean,
joking and not joking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're definitely like, hey, you know, feeling like I'm one of the best out here. Why am I not getting, you know, my shot to do things?
Yeah.
At the same time, it was like, even when I was like in my 30s, I was looking really super young. Like I could be like almost still barely a teenager or like early 20s. So it's like you didn't really look like a male action star.
Sure.
You were the kid, and now you're like still looking kind of young as hell.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? It was kind of skewing older.
Yeah.
So it was like all that time passed. Yeah. And then The Rundown came along, and I was like, really happy with that, because it was like, all right, cool. This is like I get to show like where I've been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in the process of, I really started to hone in on acting after Surf Ninjas.
Yeah.
Like all that fell apart, and it was like, okay, cool. Like I'm not getting huge house in the hills, and this is not happening the way that I thought it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a little bit like, people are a little bit like, is, you know, like, what is it? So I was like, all right, well, it's time for me to become a black belt in acting.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't really an actor. I wouldn't call myself an actor, even though I was a hired actor and to be in movies. Like I couldn't really break down like a script in the way that like I could after I learned a technique.
So you went more from a martial artist that acts to a martial artist and an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have to be like, if your level of martial arts is up to a certain skill, and now you expect like you just to be a white belt actor, and they're just gonna like, oh, because you're a black belt in martial arts, you're gonna be a black belt actor. It just doesn't work that way. You got to start from the beginning.
Correct.
And then work your way all the way up. So that's what I did, and I went into theater. I was part of a theater company called American Repertory Company for like 15 years. And did plays and Stanley Kowalski and Streetcar Named Desire and Hamlet and all these things where it's like, all right, now I know, and now I feel really comfortable.
Yeah.
In a scene with anybody, and know like I'm not gonna have to just be my personality. You know, that's what I was playing.
Yeah.
Keno is like just me as a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, Surf Ninja is like kind of same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, now I'm like acting. I'm not speaking the language that it's my first language.
Yeah.
I'm speaking language that I don't even know.
Portuguese,
So
right?
acting, yeah, Portuguese.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this and I get to do my martial arts, and I got to work with The Rock, who's like, you
Crazy,
know what I mean?
man.
Like,
Yeah.
and get to do my thing though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, yeah, you're ready to go. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna do this one kick, and then you're
And
gonna
then
get
that's it.
And that's it. It's like, no,
But you
we
got
gotta-
to flex.
I got to like, yo, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to. This is who I am. This is, you know. And a lot of people didn't even make the correlation. Like, hey, that's the kid from Last Dragon. Is
Bro, let me tell you something. When I got that DVD, me and my pops was watching that shit. As soon as you came on screen, both of us was like, yo, is that Keno? Because, I mean, it was kind of what you just identified. Like, I was definitely one of the people that was curious as to, like, you know, I grew up a big martial arts nerd, you know, heavy on the Bruce Lee, heavy on the Van Damme. And so, yeah, I was pretty shocked after Surf Ninjas when I was like, where's Keno at, bro? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I ain't seeing shit. Yeah. So we were hyped when we saw you, man. And I was like, damn, this
That's
is amazing. What was your favorite memory with The Rock?
My favorite memory was actually filming the scene.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of other people. You know, there was a whole Kentucky tribe, so it wasn't just me against The Rock. You know, but that was really my favorite favorite moment, because we were getting to do action. It's like, this is what I've trained my whole life to do, and I'm getting to do it with The Rock, who's like, outside of like being a wrestling superstar, and like, to move with somebody who's big and who can do his thing is like, that's what's a dream come true when it comes to fights.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm always the smaller guy.
Yeah.
You know, now I got like a big size guy who can also move, because a lot of times, and I think I talked about it in a little bit of the behind the scenes for the making of the rundown, it's like a lot of times you get the big lumbering guy and it's like, well, we can't like dance right because you just can't move, you know what I mean, where he could move. And so to do those little bits where we got to do it, it was like that was it, that was the moment. And then my dad got to come on set and we got to take a picture with The Rock, and my dad was like a big fan and just like really, you could see like was super proud of like, hey, you know, I haven't given up on the dream. Like, it doesn't matter, whatever. I'm in shape and I'm representing not just me, but my whole like family legacy and what we're trying to do.
In 2006, you hosted Final Fu. I loved that show. By that time, XMA, the special, was already up on Discovery Channel, so I thought Matt Mullins was mad cool. I obviously was a big Ernie Reyes Jr. fan, so it was a dope thing for me to watch. How did that come across your desk, and was there ever any talk of a second season, or was it just the one and done?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like, it was basically, my agent called me, he was like, hey, MTV's doing a reality show, martial arts competition show. They're looking for like the young master. Or whatever. I was like, again, it goes back to hip hop, a lot of it for me. I'm like, what, MTV? What? There's no young master that's more MTV than me. Like, there wasn't that, and I already knew a lot of the guys that I would bump into or whatever. I was like, all right, this is like perfect or whatever. The show was like, in its first stages, was something completely different. It was wushu, which is Chinese martial arts, which is very flowery and pretty and very, you have to be a super athlete to do, but it's like not fighting and it's not that kind of thing. And I'm not a wushu guy, even though I've trained wushu and like I can do it. Nobody knows like me as a wushu guy. They know me for my kicking and like what I do. So like we filmed the pilot, but I was just like, guys, this is like a little bit weird because it's a reality show. So I'm saying my name is Ernie Reyes, and then I'm in this like sash. I got a sash on. It doesn't end my shirt off. Like, this is not really making sense.
Sure.
And I was trying to tell them like, hey, there's UFC and there's all these different things. Like, I like what we're doing here, but it's not what it is. The final show, and they actually listened to me, and I kind of like was, but the show in the end was just a mashup of too many different ideas. You know, I was trying to say like, hey, let's train these kids, let's put them through these things, and then let's have them fight, like have them fight like in MMA, but like still you can do it in all kinds of different fashions or whatever. And then we were like, all right, well, let's just fight and let's just hit to the body. And I'm like, well, you understand like the popularity, and this is like 2004 or 5 or whatever. I'm like, the popularity of like UFC and all this, like this is like, I was envisioning more what the Ultimate Fighter or the Contender Series. You know, I was imagining that on MTV. I was like, guys, and I've already know a lot of promoters, and so I've been around the fight promotion game since I was a little kid. I was like, I'm telling you, if we have MTV as the platform, and then we have a competition where we take these like great like martial arts athletes who could do forms and trick and make them fight for real, like that's exciting. I want to see some shit like that and see who's like, and they're like, no, we can't do this as a liability. I'm like, damn, at this point we could be 20 years deep into a fighting competition on MTV, you know what I'm saying? But it just didn't work out. So, and I was kind of like, again, kind of like, oh man, this is like halfway cool but halfway goofy at the same time. So I was just like, I don't know, I'm cool if it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? But it just, and a lot of people liked it, you know what I mean? But I honestly, like, I had too many problems with it for it to be like really like stand up behind it and whatever. Sure. Started off as a whole different show, turned into whatever it did, and now we're just confused. And so, but that's how Hollywood works a lot of times. You know, you got executives talking about things that they don't know anything about, talking about martial arts, talking about all kinds of things. It should be this, it should be that. I'm like, bro, you have never even like seen a UFC fight or been to a martial arts tournament or like, I know you're an executive, but like,
but you don't know what's up.
But you don't know what's up.
Give me your favorite memory with Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, The best. I mean, first of all, that was like one of my highlights working on Indiana Jones. Spielberg called. I was just about. My daughter was like, she was about to be born, and I got a call, and it was like, hey, Indiana Jones is looking for you. I was like, thank God. Like, I need something happening right now because I'm about to have a kid, and I have no idea like how I'm gonna make anything work for that matter. Other than I know I'm committed to, but it was like a blessing.
Sure, yeah.
And so for me to be there, and I kept saying in the early interviews, like Spielberg and Lucas and that whole crew of filmmakers, actually. Because it's Spielberg, it's Lucas, it's Brian De Palma, it's Martin Scorsese, it's Coppola. It was like that's that era of filmmakers.
Yeah.
And so to be there on set with Spielberg, I mean, I remember watching like Temple of Doom and whatever, going, man, it's like the most amazing thing ever. We were on a set, amazing set design, and it was like lightning and wind and leaves were pouring everywhere. And I, again, got to choreograph my little bit right there. And so we would finish the take, and I would look up, and it was like, we were at the bottom. It was like, it was probably like 30 feet up or something. They were standing over the rails. He was giving me like a big thumbs up, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. And this was an amazing moment in time. Yeah.
Wow, man. Hell yeah. Yo, Ernie, thank you so much, my man. In 92, I believe, you did a spot on Bay Area local television, and you said you were, one of the things you want to do is embody a positive lifestyle, active, healthy.
I like to get across a positive and healthy lifestyle, from eating right to exercising to not doing drugs. Kids should always strive to become the best that they can be. And I think parents just really have to instill a positive mental attitude, and that probably is one of the most important things, is developing that positive attitude of, I could do anything I want to do.
You absolutely have always embodied that, and I want to thank you for never falling off, man. There's people that say they're about it, and there's people that are actually about it. You're one of those dudes that's actually about it, and I respect that so much. And so I appreciate you for being there, just for someone to look to and say like, yo, Ernie Reyes is still keeping it real, and so that inspires me to keep it real.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And just so that I don't give any kind of like misrepresentation of who I am or whatever through anybody else's perception of like what it is or whatever, but I grew up in Hollywood, so it's almost impossible. I have kids now, so you learn and you have awareness of what the road looks like. But it's like I've definitely had my challenges, and I've definitely fallen off the pathway, in terms of like my own sensibilities of what I believe in and what I think, and just going through the process of growing up and being confused, and then hanging out in Hollywood and partying, and all of that is part of my story.
Sure.
It's not part of my story. But I can say that like here right now, it's like I feel like I found my way back to the pathway, and haven't arrived anywhere. I'm just on the pathway, but at least I know I'm not wandering off lost in the woods somewhere. So I just want to say that life is the way that it is, and you may be facing some challenges, and you might fall off, and you might get caught up in drugs, and you might be whatever it is. It could be anything, you know what I'm saying? But you can always fight your way back to the main road and keep going, where you set off originally. And so I don't want to ever come across like, hey, I'm this like whatever, but I am about it, and I am real, and I keep it real to the best of my ability. But that's still a process too, right? Like,
yes, sir.
I'm still discovering who I am. I'm still discovering the strengths and weaknesses, of my own like self.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I never want to come across like, hey, I've arrived at some place, or that I think that I have some sort of like awareness or knowledge that like only I have or whatever. But I do know that my life has been definitely challenging, filled with struggle and hardship, you know what I mean? And I can say that I definitely feel good now. Appreciate you coming by and saying what's up, and we'll chop it up again soon.
Hey, respect, man. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I'm all grown up.
Psych!
I'm all grown up. Psych!